That would make more sense. That wouldn't it? That makes things easier. So this is where everything in the, I don't really have notes for this, but this is where everything started. In this room, the episode 1 starts off with, actually no, I shouldn't do this in this order. Should probably start off with the other things, with the text logs. That might make things easier. What did I do? Should probably start off with the other things, with the text logs. That might make things easier. What did I do? So hopefully this volume is better. Hopefully. Let's go here. Yeah, here. Playlist. Transmission received. Yeah, you can't really see it right now because I don't have it set up to do so, but the first technical episode is more of a teaser and or just stuff that's setting up the events that are going to, or the events that have happened around in the area. But it's talking about pretty much a transmission was sent, or it was originally, yeah, it was received by someone, and you don't necessarily know who. You know, the intended receiver is the owner of the company, who's, I think, Yes, it was directly sent to Mr. Castor or Charon Castor, or however you want to pronounce it, the head of the company, and sent by the name sent by someone who you'll end up seeing later is at the head of the production, but is also the same name that shows up at the end of chapter 1 as a person who ends up taking over the job after. Is it Senpai? I have to check. Yeah, by who end up taking over the production and saying that, okay, part 1 is done, everything has been built. They found the gateway. They found the big door. They started building, and they're getting ready to do the rest of the project, which is what you see in this one, or the aftermath of, or how they did it specifically. You see in this one, not fully, but you get background information of how it's been done, and exactly what Project Archeron is. Second one is an audio decryption. We don't know where this is coming from specifically. At least it's only that someone has managed to acquire this audio log. So we can see that there's 3 people talking in this. At some point, someone is like a cyan text. We have someone who's in a green text, and we have someone who's in red text. The cyan text is supposed to represent Charon Castor, who has both Soul Torch and himself are going to be associated with the same color have been associated with the same color, and will be if there are any further text documents that have either been shown and or audio documents that have been recorded and uploaded in a similar way to this one. I don't necessarily remember. Red is supposed to represent, in the previous one it says his name is Dr. Adam Michaels, who is the same person as he was in previous, in transmission received, as well as he shows up later as someone who is the head of the Archeron project as well. And yeah, that's it. That's all we know about him. And then green is supposed to be yeah, it's supposed to be I think Jeremy Anderson, if I remember their name correctly. I don't know for sure. I don't remember for sure. But I'm pretty sure that's what their name is. The name does show up in one spot later. Whether or not it was included in the actual video, I don't remember. But this audio log is the process that is the Archeron project. It's the final part of it. It's the final shell that was used in the hallway that you see at the very end. And then after everything happens, it eventually goes through, and you see that there are now further plans and other stuff that is not seen that Charon Castor has laid out, mainly by saying that there was supposed to be something that they were going to do with the Typhon shell. Typhon? Yeah, Typhon shell. But the plans have changed, and something else is happening. Okay. That brings us to the first actual episode, The Assignment, which is what takes place in this room. You start off as your main character who ends up walking walking through the building, coming out through these doors, and going down some stairs, checking the mail before ending up in front of the building. I don't think it's still in here. I think it was in that box. I don't know for sure. But it was big news by their boss. They say pretty much go to the building, see what happens, and write about it before Soul Torch gets to it. It's a little bit of a secret. It's not a full building. The building that they are in, or at the building that you're in at the very beginning, is just this. There's no big. It's not a whole building. It was just made to look like a hallway and enough space so that it would look like there could be a full building here, but there isn't. And over here is the actual Soul Torch building. You can see that it is still very tall, and it goes. This also never was a full path. It only went up to a certain amount, which is why you never see yourself turn around. You start about here, or you start even closer and it's raining. And this is where you finish opening the book. You look up. This is where it starts. It's already night, so you're able to get in before, so that it gives at least a little bit of excuse to why the building is completely empty, or you can't see anyone inside the building. I'm gonna hope that didn't pick up on the mic. I just drank some water. So then you would end up going up the stairs. There's nothing on the podium, but you can see here again, Mr. Castor popping up, ST Incorporated, President and CEO of the company. Once again referring to Sharon Castor, who is at the top, who has their office at the top of the building. In here, you have a loading bay with the garage door, which does not open because it was never designed to be open. I should probably actually go around the outside of the building so you can see what's out there. Because you never actually go and look to see on the other side of the building. There's just an edge here that goes straight into the water. You can see part of the levels below, as well as a hole that I'll end up using later. But that is just where the outside building is. I don't think you end up going out here in the video where you, the ascent, which is the next one in the timeline wise. You end up looking around, seeing there's a whole bunch of floors. Originally, there was supposed to be one that said subfloors off limits, but that would remove the secrecy of it. But you do get somewhat of a hint of it looking down the elevator shaft, which is also not a full elevator. It's just holes, some andesite similar to make it look like it's an actual elevator shaft. And you can also see the elevator that's even further down below. I'll start doing the outside of the building because there's nothing really else. There's just a second level, and this is where you end up going. I changed how the elevators worked. So in the first video where you're inside the building, technically the second episode for the actual story, I took out the walls, edited so it looked like they opened, and then walked out, closed them before I turned around, and then built the blocks back before I turned around, and then kept going, which made for all the wonky cuts in between the things. This is supposed to be a meeting room or a conference room, and this is supposed to be like I was gonna say whiteboard, but not necessarily a whiteboard, but like a projector screen, and this is your projector. There's some cubicles which do have like a chair, mouse, desk, laptop which has no back. You can end up looking out here, see there's like an AC thing, as well as some vents, and just a pole there for fun. And if you go up the side, you can see that is the only floor except for the top that was finished. All the other ones are completely empty. And so was the sides, because you never see the sides, so I didn't need to put detail on them. And the only thing you ever end up seeing of the upper levels is from down here. You look up, seeing that there's a whole bunch of stairs, but you never see any of the walls or anything else. So it doesn't matter that there's nothing up there because you would never see it anyway. I did originally plan to fill up the entire building, but I thought that would take too long and be redundant. You can already start seeing where I started to change stuff. They all had this weird system for doing it. I have no idea why it's done like this. I eventually streamlined it later. On the inside of the elevators, there's a second button, which I think might have been seen in some shots, but I don't know for certain. That would close the doors, and then you'd have to, because this is like one of the first times I built it, I didn't make it open the doors as well, which I ended up doing later, so that you can get in and out. I think I did that at least. I don't know for certain, but one of them opens, one of them closes. Over here you see a chest, which you get, nope, not the Child Project, which one is it? You actually don't get a book from here, you get the authorization key, which I've just had in my inventory the entire time, because I forgot to put it, I didn't actually forget to put it back, I just forgot what was in this, but you get the authorization key, as well as a journal, that has nothing in it, it just says lore a whole bunch of times, and that's about it. That will definitely never come up again. This is where a computer would be, but there's nothing. You can also see that there's a whole bunch of paintings up here, not really symbolizing much, except for, and they're not really symbolizing much, but there's a common theme of, you have a skeleton here, you have the wither, kind of, you have like an angel moving into the void, you have another skull that's burning. So the same thing over here, have the same picture, but that's because there's only so many paintings in Minecraft. So I don't fully remember what these were supposed to be. I think one of them was like, I don't remember exactly why those were there, but they were there and they worked. This is an entire conference table. This was built before I fully knew what how it was going to end. I changed a couple things before it was finished. And I think because after the change, I think it worked better. Originally, you'll see it pops up once later in a single line that I don't even know if it was put in a book. I know it was the author of the book says the Everlast. They were supposed to be pretty much they are the secret group that built the ruins that lie below the company, or not the company, just this one building, and they were put up here and using this wood specifically to show that they are different. It's a difference from all of the cyans and blues and somewhat greens that the rest of the building uses. It's a helipad that was out here. Unfortunately, when you're up this high, it starts to snow instead of rain, which makes things a little annoying, but still. I think this entire front area is detailed, but not the back. There's also some of the redstone. You can see how early this was a lot early. This was really early in the actual building of it. So you see how like non-streamlined the redstone is, and also this making this entire thing got me to actually do redstone and try to make it as compact as possible while it's still as simple. So I got a little bit better at doing redstone from it. I was originally going to put a full roof in, but then I decided not to because I didn't need to. Over here at least, because it made things simpler for getting farther down. I think that's it. Also, if you just want to know how tall the building is, it's 148 blocks tall. Okay, it's not 140 blocks. It's about 70 blocks tall. A little bit more than 70 blocks tall. But I think that's it for this one area. So, episode 2, The Ascent, ends with you opening the elevator, walking in, turning, and actually I think that's how episode 3 starts, which I do not remember the name of right now. Let me just check to see what the next episode is called. Descent. The Underground. So when you first start moving, I closed everything that I didn't want to close. Hopefully that doesn't pop up on stream. It doesn't. Okay, good. Right. Yeah, it should. Then, because this is not a working elevator, I have to break through the floor, just fall down here. Although this like technically doesn't work, I wanted to seem like this was the only elevator that could reach down to the bottom, because it was specifically in the penthouse. That is why it's positioned here for that reason alone, even though it doesn't necessarily have to go through the same path. And then down here we have the same issue of pushing a button that doesn't work because I don't have everything hooked up, because I have to remove the pistons every time so I could hide them. So that's how that goes. I did end up adding secret tunnels between. I didn't talk. Okay, I'll do that now. So I have a secret tunnel that pretty much goes around all of the buildings, so I can, when building it and also doing the early episodes, I was able to stay in the one spot. I was able to not. It made it easier to get to other places when either needing to record new places, new things, or just move around in general when building. So this entire place is fully built. This is where that room is what's shown in the last episode. It comes up straight through here, the storage delivery lift, which is why it's here. It goes straight down, and was originally supposed to be. You were supposed to go through here at some earlier point, but it was made so that you could go through it at some earlier point, but I never had a reason to. So you never really got to saw this, which is the working HCL35 or 35, also known as Hercules, or I guess it'd be Hercules, because this is using, because a lot of the names I took for the machines and a couple other things come from more Greek mythology than Roman, and Hercules is technically a Roman name, and Heracles is the Greek name for him, but still. Yeah, that's what it would look like when it's fully built. You see one of these in the iron as well. These suits are what was used to, were first shown in Chapter 1 as the ones that the outsider used to go down the tunnel, down the elevator to see the ruins for the first time. And you put these on, and these also show up again later. The same with the generators here. They were first shown early in I know they were there the entire time. They were first shown overall in the first chapter as the generator thing. This is where you also first see the name Soul Torch pop up. These are supposed to be servers that were just kind of stored here. I don't know why they're here, but they are. And just a whole bunch of other random stuff that was put here. And this also leads down. originally, instead of having to climb your way up that spot, it was supposed to be another lift, but then I remembered the issue that came up in the first chapter, which was it looked weird because you went from this field of view to this field of view, which is a little bit larger, and you also move a lot faster than I would like you to when going up the elevator. You'd also have to make sure to stop, which is another reason why you didn't go down when instead you had to climb back up using the tendrils and vines that came from the portal. Just made it easier when recording stuff. Oh, I should probably go back down here because that's where we were. Go back over here. It's up here. So yeah, go back over here. Secret tunnels that allow you to get through place to place pretty quickly. You first go down here. You see the legal team, which is there. You see one of the Charles robots. I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but we'll find it. These were just names I had thought of. Some of them have like full rooms inside of them, some of them don't. Because I realized that I didn't need to put full rooms in it. It's just a bunch of rooms with nothing in it. So for this one, this was originally, so this shows a whole bunch of different sites that there are Soul Torch buildings at, supposedly. Whether I end up coming back, I didn't end up using any of that. For this, whether I come back to it, I might. There's a chance I might come back to it, but I'm not entirely sure whether I will. Also, the choice to have the authorization key up higher was, I originally planned on having it down here in the apple orchard, which was another thing that this is where the chest would have been, I think. That's where it was, even though it should have been behind the desk. Which was something that I thought of using a bit more. I still might come back to it, but I don't know for sure. Here you can see also a whole bunch of different things that Soul Torch owns. You have Soul News, which is directly in contrast to the one that the protagonist ends up works for, which is they're the ones who they were trying to beat here. Yeah, I don't know why. Even further down, these make less sense being here. That's just a reference. If you know, you know. There's a hole there. I don't know why there's holes there. Those shouldn't be there. Yeah, there is construction, mining. There's only two really of these make sense to be down here. There's supposed to really be, well, three of them if I'm ever coming back to this. There's supposed to be investors' offices, but I don't know why they'd be down here in a secret place where all the secret stuff is happening. So here it is. The charging. So Charles, you have the charging and deposit panel. That's what all these popped up for. It says that on all of them, I'm pretty sure, or at least this one it does. But yeah, that's pretty much about that. Then it moves on to which one? I don't remember what it was called. I have to find that. The assignment, the labs. Yeah, so it goes on to the labs, which was difficult when editing because it was just annoying because I had to re-record a whole bunch of stuff. I didn't break anything. Live stream. So yeah, if you hear any voices, it's me playing the stream somewhere else, so I know if there's anyone showing up in chat, which there isn't, sadly. Oh, I'm going to turn that down because that's going to start a feedback loop. So these are the offices. You have the chemistry lab, which is just, I feel like this is in reverse. It's backwards. So the botany lab. These flowers, you see that they're behind glass, which means there's something important about them. They're dangerous. We don't know why they're dangerous. The actual flowers, a withered rose, which definitely is not going to get brought up later at all. As well as some other plants that are down here. I would have put more in here, but the placement of a couple of them made it awkward and confusing, and I didn't end up going through with it. So, I've already talked about chemistry lab. The hazardous chemical lab, there's nothing really here. However, you also do see these. I think they are also mentioned later. When talking about the process something. I think it's, I know it's farther down. The analysis lab is just kind of empty. There's supposed to be, this liquid is supposed to be the same, derived from the plants that are in the one next door, I think. Yes. One next door. And this is just supposed to be some liquid. They're not, they weren't really hard to make. It's just water, and then I put soul sand, I think, in the bottom of them. Soul sand. And that made the bubbles. Another computer things there. And then, yeah, that's it. And then you see another charcoal panel, as well as the other doors. And these ones do work how they're supposed to. There's also no inside one for some reason. And going even farther down, there's another one here. And it doesn't work because the pistons are gone. But this, I think, this became almost the design that I ended up using everywhere else because it was simple and easy to make, as well as it made just editing part of it easier because you press the button, it would open, you'd walk out, it would close behind you, and then all I'd have to do is take away those blocks and then re-put more. I've also skipped ahead, I think, a bit. I skipped up past like the episode names. No, I haven't. Never mind. Also, just the inclusion of certain labs underground may lead to some suspicion due to Soul Torch being normally a public face, as seen by their big building. They had a grand opening with a whole ribbon that is, and entire press thing, as well as the meeting that was mentioned back at the end of chapter 1 with the head of the company, which you don't physically meet them, but you know who they are in this chapter. You find out who they are. The next in the timeline is the Iron, or the robotics lab. The episode called The Iron. You end up finding a whole bunch of different things. You have the cleaning, hospitality, robotic life lab, which is what Charles stands for. Trial project by Spencer Top. Pretty much talking about how they work and that they use a specific, just explaining a little bit of background on what they're doing here and how they use a specific battery. I think, what is the exact way that's worded? They also have new batteries that are charged from specific panels that draw from the reactor. They don't, as you can, from that definition, you can assume that the people who are working up on these higher levels do not know what's happening underneath, are unaware of the actual project that's going on. Just as stated here, the head of the robotics division does not know what the robots are being made for or even how they're getting powered, which may cause for some concern from people who are, rationally thinking and not characters that are written to give exposition. There's just a couple other things. Prosthetic Construction Lab. This is where they make certain prosthetics that are mentioned later. There's also some server rooms down here that don't have anything in them. They're also not hard to make. It's just iron doors with levers underneath to power them on. An assembly bay, which is lever and off and on. These are supposed to be like little weldy things. There's two of them. Then you have the iron construction logs, which are shown here. The different project, the iron logs. Both of these are found in here, pretty much talking about it. You have, I think it was test. I don't remember what this exactly stands for. But you have test. I think it might be test body A, test body C, or test bay A, test bay C, test. I'm forgetting B. But then you have the fourth, which is Mirage Mark 1. Then you have Redacted Shell, which you don't know what it is because it's redacted until later. You find out what they're used for. Then you have the HCL35 Prototype 1, and then you have another redacted shell. You have you have MR493, which is codename Mirage, but that doesn't pop up at all. Because I didn't use it and I kind of forgot about it. Then you have HCL35 Prototype 1, which I've already talked about. Then you have Redacted Shell. Then you have number 8, which is ATM15 Mark 1, which is supposed to be Artemis, who is, I think, who's Artemis? Let me remember. If I remember correctly, the goddess of the hunt. So pretty much, yeah, goddess of the hunt. I think I originally, yeah. I don't know why I really chose that name. I think I wanted like a name for a god of war, but I didn't want necessarily to use. I forget what his name is in Greek mythology. I didn't want to use Ares, so I just wanted to use something different. Then you have the HCL35 Mark 1, which is the full thing, and which you end up seeing arms of later. Then you have Redacted Shell again, HCL35, and then you have. Oh, I thought that was an A. No, it's an R. So you have RTM15 Mark 2, and then you have Redacted Shell, Redacted Shell, Redacted Shell, Redacted Shell, and then you have then you have two productions of the same HCL35 Mark 3, and then you have the ATL45 Mark 1, which is being built at the moment, which you can see here. Also known as, also written to show Atlas, which you end up seeing later, farther around. Then you have, I don't know if I said this, I muted my headset for a second, and I don't know if it actually went through. Pretty much saying that I think it went through, so I'm not gonna repeat it. And if I didn't go through, I'll talk about it later. So then you have the iron. I already forgot what it says. The Iron Project, pretty much talking about what the iron is for, and they needed to have larger machines to do specific things, both to sell and also to secretly end up building and secretly end up building the shells that are used farther down in the basement, that so that it wouldn't raise suspicion about it. Also, just kind of a publicity stunt. So much saying that using the specific batteries as being carbon neutral, because that's not what their main goal is. This is the building of one of the Hercules lifters, which I'm going to talk about now because they're next. So you can see the HCL 3.5 Mark 1 arm and the Mark 2 arm. These currently have the Mark 3 arms on them, which are there. Then you have also a chest that's empty because I have all the books in my inventory. The HCL 3.5 project. Yeah. So you have the hand control. So HCL, if you even read if anyone who read the things stand for hand controlled lifter, they aren't based off of the power lifter at all. At all. They don't look like them whatsoever. They're a different color and not in space. It's pretty much used as just a forklift that is on the a forklift that walks. That's what it is. Then you have the director office, which is empty because it was never opened. Storage lift, a little bit of a forklift down here to help move stuff. Then you have the lift that was originally supposed to go up at the very end. And this is where you would leave, but I changed it because I didn't want to go through editing all of that because it would look weird, and also I think the ending just makes things more interesting now. Can I go through this hole? Then you go through back all the way through here. I think there's a cut in between. Then we have the labs. I think that's what it's called. Labs, the iron. Oh, the research, which somehow is my most viewed video. I have no idea how that happened, but it did. So down here you see all the different labs that are used. Muscle and organ lab, you see that these are, I don't know what this is supposed to be, I do not remember what it was supposed to be. You can see these dummies that were put here. You know, like those kind of skeletons you see, either big or small, that you see in like doctors' offices and in the science rooms. Why do I keep hearing doors closing? It's just another room. I already forgot what it was. There's nothing that happens in there. Oh, I know why I hear doors closing. Because I didn't pause the video. The body and bone structure lab, nothing happens in here again. It's just another skeleton. Then you have the samples. There's also nothing in here. But you do see those plants again that were upstairs in the secret. Not the secret, but in the botany lab. They're brought up again here. I hope I'm not too loud. You have another server room, and then you have the medical toxin lab, which is pretty much taking the pre-existing, taking different flowers and seeing how toxic they are, finding out that this flower specifically is very toxic. And who knows why. Nervous system lab, this is where you figure out a very important thing about the interface. I think this is it. Or that's from this one. Oh, it's in this one. Okay, the prosthetic interface. Pretty much talking about how they allow I think I spelled mission wrong there. Yeah, so pretty much this is just kind of an important thing. You see the connection that Jared Caster has to this specific part of it, and both of them together, because the prosthetics are made in down the robotics side, and this is where the rest of the interface was made for them. so they can help use their prosthetics as a as like a limb would, and it would be uh, more like a limb would than I guess modern prosthetics would, because you'd be able to move it autonomously, pretty much as if it were your limb. This also shows that Charon Castor is also missing something. He needs the prosthetics as well, because he's able to have that connection to them. This is pretty much where they plotted? That's not the right word. This is pretty much their further research into understanding how things work, which is what leads him to figure out how to get the Archon project to work fully. This is just the office again, talking about the speech and what they do. I forget what it says. Don't think it's long. It's not long. Pretty much talking about how Soul Torch as a company wishes to benefit the rest of humanity, which isn't entirely false, but from what it seems like, it's not true. Even though they have done some things that have helped people. Here's another Charles, as well as another station and an elevator. This, I think, currently is the standing workings of it, or the most common workings of the elevator. It's turned off and on by one spot. It opens, closes really quickly. Goes down here, same thing. And now we're in the basement. Next is the generator floor, which is pretty much you find out what's happening, or what is fully happening. You see the Archeron generator, or the Olympus generator, which is what Project Olympus is referring to in the first text log. I spoke wrong the first time because I forgot what the name of the generator was. I wrote all of this, and I have forgotten it. But yeah, so this is what the Olympus project is referring to, that fact that the generator is working and that they're moving on to the Archeron project, which uses the Olympus generator. Also, these specific signs are energy, radiation, and magnetism, and they're also a reference to Chapter 1, and these are the same readings that were given off when getting data from the tower, and that was built by the Outsider. I will come back to this later. Actually, no, I'll do it now. So originally, because I changed a couple things, due to it being easier to edit, and I wouldn't have to do stop motion in Minecraft. Originally, there was supposed to be like a tendril or vine would start wrapping around the base of the generator and break it. Underneath, there's this lever, and I'm just gonna let it go. Eventually, generator would turn off. There wouldn't be any of that, the purple in the middle, and the rest of the down here would be dark. But it made it easier to edit if I didn't do that. So down the side, there's no real great way to do this, but down the side you can see the scrap project assets. You see the first shell, which was the first part of the log. You have the redacted shell 1. That is what that shell is referring to. Is there enough? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that is enough. So this is your first shell. Then you have the shell arm that didn't end up getting used, as well as a whole bunch of different heads for the atlases. For the atlas, there's multiple. Speaking of atlas, that is what is next. It's talking about how the Atlas project was planned to have a smaller version of the Olympus generator to allow it to move from place to place, doing the same things that were happening in this facility. Also, it stands for Archron Transport Lift. Then you have the Archron Lab. Cerberus. Cerberus is a three-headed dog that guards Hades. And this is kind of just it's only called that because it's vaguely dog-like in its shape. And yeah, that's what it looks like. I originally wanted it to be completely dark in there, but because of the way that I built it and the fact that I used lights, so this is all filled with tinted glass except for around the slabs because I couldn't get it in there, so everything looks somewhat illuminated. But I wanted to originally be very dim, so you couldn't really see what was happening, that you could vaguely make out the shape. But this doesn't look bad either. It just looks a little weird around the edges. Yeah. Then you have the you have that. It's pretty much a big hole in the ocean. It is one of Poseidon's daughters, I think. I don't know fully. I don't remember. But it's pretty much a big hole in the. It's an animal, it's a monster, but it has a big hole in the middle of the ocean. Has a whole bunch of teeth, and it just is there. I was working on trying to build different, like I did with Cerberus, but I was working on trying to build. I wanted to have each of these rooms filled, but I couldn't make them fit in the room and have the rooms be the same size that I would have wanted them. So I just had the door closed, so you can imagine what's behind it. But all of these rooms have an interior. This is Chimera. Chimera is like a lion mixed with a scorpion or a snake, and like a goat, I think. Yeah, it's pretty much it's just a collaboration. It's a mixture of a whole bunch of different animals. However, the most common depiction of it is a lion with like the head of a goat coming out of its back and its tail with the head of a snake on it. But that one also was not built. And then you have the Minotaur lab, which is built. See that I wanted this one to be very top heavy, and you can see that there's like resemblance of horns at the top, but not really. And this has everything else in this room is the same. And then you have the Typhon lab. Typhon is supposedly the king of the monsters and is like a reptilian, and has like dragon-like wings, and a big guy. And this is supposed to be where the what this is the place that this is where the audio log takes place. There are, although I didn't put the because I didn't fully furnish the inside of this room. They bring in Jeremy Anderson, I think his name is, and they put him in this spot. I would assume there'd be a chair here normally, and then they turn on the generator, and they put him in one of the shells that isn't here because I didn't build it. Then you have the Archon project. Here it is. So the Archon project is pretty much explaining what's happening down here. Short synopsis of it is pretty much, originally they wanted to find a way to power. They were trying to figure. What actually I don't remember. Why did it start? Right. So it starts off with him getting flowers. You don't necessarily know the reason why they're trying to do. Well, you do, but you don't know the motivation behind it fully, other than because. He starts off with Mr. Castor getting flowers. So those are the same flowers that are seen in the botany lab and the other lab, with the toxicity lab. The same black flowers. However, in Minecraft, they're called wither roses. And he gets them from, oh, it's mentioned there. Pretty much, they understand the plant, they're studying the plant, and they finally get the Olympus generator working. This is where the first text log starts. So at this point, I originally planned, before all of this, to have like a teaser trailer showing the brass, the copper door from the end of chapter 1 closing up onto itself and sealing shut. That is what this is referring to. And then eventually, before it's fully closed, have something somewhat peek over the edge and stop it from closing, and that's where it would end. But I didn't end up making that. So that is what it's referring to when it says whatever's looking behind that door, because they haven't seen the portal or the gateway that's back there. And that is what they're drawing power from to power the Olympus generator. So eventually, this is 23. This is 23 days after that event. They started attempting to test on people, having employees volunteer to take the experiments, but not necessarily leaving them with nothing because they are still opting to give them some compensation for it. It pretty much explains the process. The flowers are turned into a liquid, and is then injected into the person. They are then sent a surge of the energy from the Archon, the Olympus generator, which generates power from the portal, and they are turned into a substance, that become a conductive substance that utilizes energy from, I've already said, and then they eventually start putting that into specific things. And they eventually figure out that it does work as a power source, and is eventually used, and how it works in ways similar to how the body creates movement, and similar in that specific way, but it's used to produce energy in the specific context. This is eventually what is mentioned on how the Charl robots work. So instead of them just being robots, they are previous employees who volunteered themselves to be turned into goop and then put into robots. Although those ones specifically do not have any. They've lost all feeling and emotion, so they're just mindless robots now. That is just how they are, and they do this specific thing. So, so on day 56, they figure out same thing I was just saying. But they wanted to see pretty much because if it works the same way that a nervous system does and how we move, if that is stimulated prior to putting before putting them through the process, will they get a different outcome? And that's what they plan for, but we do see a hesitation from Mr. Castor, who does still have some humanity left inside of him, knowing what he's about to do to a whole bunch of people around him who trust him and are willing. Because he still wants to do he's still doing what he thinks is best for humanity. Although uh, Adam Michaels is not so empathetic towards the cause and just wants to see what happens and is ready to further production. Eventually, a couple days later, Mr. Castor has some kind of falling out with one of the investors and lashes out towards him, taking him down here where he would be put into a who they would use as their first test subject and see if it works, and it does. This eventually moves on to the production of the shells and showing how they have, or they claim to have, created an evolution for humanity through this process. James Anderson. I thought it was Jeremy Anderson. That might just be a typo. I don't remember. So pretty much, they are the person who originally was the head of the project back in chapter 1, who was eventually had the same process done to him as just went over. And pretty much saying that they have finally broken. They knew that already that he was not as confident as everyone else was about the project due to the previous notes that were written in his journal before. And also you can see the lack of um, lack of empathy and humanity that Adam Michaels shows due to being almost excited that um, their previous coworker was turned into a goop. And this takes place right after the previous the audio log, which takes place right before the day before uh, the you get to the building. And over here, originally that book was supposed to be in here, where you would see that Jay Anderson has a resignation note, which wouldn't presumably have sent to his family. Just another elevator that doesn't work because the redstone isn't set up. And then that leads us down here, which is open, close. You see once again the armor stands. I put the one that I used, that I took off, back. Is it underneath or is it above? I think it's above. I'm trying to get to show the redstone that was used to make the door work. Oh, it's not underneath. It's both underneath and above. So down here you can pretty much see just one track redstone going from the button, different parts, pulls them out. They're supposed to be pulled out independently of each other, but you don't really see it. can see it a bit from that side. Yeah, and then you close it. I'll close. This one opens. Then we end up in the ruins, which I think is what. No, is that what this episode's called? Episode. Is that what this one is called? Yeah, the ruins. So then you start traveling down here, realizing that this place is much bigger than was originally thought. And you see what is drawing power from the generator. So a bunch of things, and then you also see that some of the tendrils have you don't really see this from the perspective that you're at, but they've wrapped themselves around it, slowly crawling up the sides. So you end up moving down towards these steps, looking around, seeing a whole bunch of different flowers locked away, including the wither roses, which are also down here, although not where Jarencaster got them from, as well as some vines that had been gathered, as well as a pathway that's fallen, that has been blocked by rubble. Now all of this has already been built. All of these things have already been put here before the Soul Torch industry had showed up in this location. And so this shows that there's been more people that have already been down here and have existed. This is where you find the portal. It's pretty much an explanation for what the portal is, showing that there's a separate group who does know something about it. And this group is called the Everlast. And that's all you know about them so far. However, the inclusion of the Wither Roses down here may include some connection between him and between the Everlast and Jarencaster, saying that he got these flowers from his grandfather. Farther down, this moves into the depths, where you can see something down here, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But there is only 4, with 1 missing in the corner. I wonder if that's important. Moving farther down, you end up going down another staircase that I didn't slip up going down when recording. You see there's another library that's been cut off, as well as a room with some lava and some water, as well as a drill that has been put here. This is me just repurposing a previous thing I built for Chapter 1 that never got used, and this is pretty much the same design. It's just a drill on the front of a car or a truck. I don't know exactly what these would be called, but that's what it is. For the type of library that has been barred off, assuming by someone for unknown reasons. Even farther down, you see there are more hallways that wind, and you see a room with a bunch of cages, whether they were used to hold animals or something else. You also see a skull, which was put in the first chapter very briefly, which leads us to this hallway, which means someone had moved all the stuff out of this room, pushed it into here. That being Soul Torch had come down here and cleaned up the place before. There's nothing down this hallway, it's just empty. Then go farther this way, you can hear the portal starting, and then you have a tendril going through the ceiling, and then you see everything, and this brings us back to the room, Chapter 1. When you first enter through this area over here. It doesn't go anywhere. but it is here. It does show up here, and it's just there to make sure to keep the world building consistent. Everything, even though in the original, because the original was made before the Caves and Cliffs update, as well as being built not as deep into the ground, the stone is different, and that is pretty much the only difference between this room. The proportions are also a little bit different because I didn't match them perfectly, but it's close enough to where you can see the resemblance between the two rooms. Which means as you go further this way, this is where you end up being trapped in chapter 1. You see a bookcase that's been scribbled on it, as well as the skull of you in chapter 1, because assuming that you had died here. There's a reason why the skull is blue instead of white. Here you see the book that was put in chapter 1 about Dr. A. Michael, by Dr. A. Michael, showing the operation that was done down here. And then you get the blank book that has no title, no one. Eventually, they launch a whole bunch of things. Someone who had been trapped down here, listening to the sounds and hums from the portal, slowly melting their mind, and eventually causing them to go insane, thinking that the dog that they had lost in the fire is still here after recreating them. Then the tendrils came in and pretty much took over the room. Down the steps, you have the, once again, the brass door, which is pretty much the same as before. Same height, although it has been somewhat, it's been started to oxidize due to the introduction of oxygen down here, because because originally it had been drilled into, and because they had to get in somehow down there, and they only built over top of it, not fully caring what happened to it. So that introduction to the atmosphere fully, other than being just underground, caused it to start to rust. And this room is still pretty much the same. Floor's the same, portal's the same size. The only difference is now there's a whole bunch of blue and red that have somehow have escaped through the portal. And that is the end of this world. Of this specific world. Not the end of everything. End of being in that world. Go to chapter 2, ending. I used a different world for this again, like I did before, but that was for different reasons. I made a separate world so that I wouldn't have to go back and destroy a bunch of stuff. So I just copied it over and then destroyed the stuff. There is a screecher somewhere. I cannot find it. It's down here. And that is just pretty much the signal. The end has started. Start going through here. You don't really notice, but there's been more that has been started to spread. It's only really noticeable, except for in this room, because it's obvious. But there's just a couple small things that weren't there before. It's only really noticeable watching in succession with each other. But this is pretty much showing the spread and takeover that whatever's happening is. You can see that this room has been broken into, and all the water is all gone. It's all evaporated. You can see that there's been a tendril that's gone through and wrapped around the drill. It's broken through this library. That won't come up later. Farther up here, you can see that something is starting to and now more active than they were before. As soon as you walk by, and the scope that's around it really has started to grow, if that makes sense. Although it's not going to be stuck, it's just what I used. I forgot to mention this before, but there's nothing back here. These are the same, that's the same. I think I planned on making this a bit different. Have something break through there, but then I decided against it. Everything up here is pretty much the same. Then going up here. Everything is the same up here. You can see the spread starting farther down here. Originally, I also wanted to put another hallway on this side that would lead to here. It would still be broken into, but it's not really. Yeah, here's like the leftover from it. Oh, it's raining still. Originally, I wanted to have it. It would just go backwards, but I thought it wouldn't work as well. It did. But it'd only be there to show how big the place is and how there's more that's still undiscovered. I don't know why I'm going up this way. There's an easier way to go. Oh, that's fine. So pretty much you can see that it started to break through up here. And then eventually I wanted it to do a similar thing where you'd see it crawl up behind and then eventually you'd close the door on it. Open up this one, run through. You'd see it start to break through and you'd have to close it again. Oh, I guess I got rid of it now. But you see there's now a stand missing. You end up returning up this way. There's a hole in the floor for some reason. And without the dark, this is what the room ended up looking like. You only really see it when the lights have gone off, but the energy's gone. See all these, all this growth happening in here. The vines, like somewhat trees, have started to sprout from the wood. These originally were purple, or well, they were white. They were like these. Were they? No, they weren't. They were originally purple, I think. And now they've gone white because they've powered down. They're not on anymore. And that's what it just looked like when it was on. I'm going to turn it off again just to see what it looks like turning off, because I haven't actually seen that. So I guess that's what it looks like. Everything down here is still the same though. Nothing changed back there, nothing changed up there. This is still the same. I think I wanted to move him, but I didn't. Or I did and I forgot. All of this had been broken still. See pretty much the spread up here, all that fun stuff. Down here you see that the Atlas had fallen, or the Atlas had fallen off its chains down into the depths. And that definitely won't come up later. This one is still fine though. Everything's still the same around here. you end up walking up here. I accidentally started flying when recording this part. I guess by the time I realized I was flying, it was too late to go back and redo everything because I just didn't want to. You can see everything spreading around, holes in the ground and the walls. But through here, this is why I did. Let's see. This is why I showed this area when it was brighter, so that things could be seen. I removed all the lights that were up here. This is also the place that I said you could see from outside when I went around the building. That room. See the different spread. Everything's lit with this glow lichen, so that it still blends in a little bit. But as you can see, I'm mixing netherrack and the colored netherrack. I don't remember what's turf, and that's not turf. I forget what it's called, but use the light. Climb up here, pull this lever, and then the piston's turned on. And that is just me purposing this one lever. I hope I wasn't muted for most of that. And it's not a really complicated redstone thing. I'm just gonna go down here. And these ones are turned on last after these ones. And you can see that even if you did try, well, actually no, I meant to cover that, but I forgot. You can see it started going from the top. That is only there so I can give an excuse to have a hole in the roof so the beacons can go through because they're right underneath this. And you can see it started spreading through the glass. You can see kind of up there and there. It's covered up this area. And then you're stopped. And eventually the light also cuts to you. And that's that part. Move on to the test world. My test worlds where I've done like just a bunch of testing stuff. But this is also where I put the ending area. It's not super complicated. It's just a big long line of repeaters so I could get everything put upright. And that pretty much, once the beacon closes, that is the way it's supposed to be. I'm not going to leave on when it starts. Press that button. It turns all this off, and that's how I got the effect. I'm going to go under this because this is nothing, so you don't need to look at that. It works on the same principle of big long tower. Turns on some pistons. Nothing complicated. This is originally where I built the Atlas. You can see that there is an end crystal in there, which is also shown in the thing that was drawing power from underground. You can see 4 of them in there, showing that this is a smaller version, somewhat, of the Archeron generator. You can see that the eye is also purple now, which means that it's on. These were some of the designs I was working with, trying to get work. This is for the one I could not pronounce. Charybdis, I think, Charybdis. But instead of, it being floating, it was like an ant almost, being able to walk around and climb up walls and scale walls. And I could never just get a proper structure to work. This was me testing out different ways to put for the Typhon shell. This ended up being, this is too big for although it looks, I don't think it looks bad. I think it ended up being too big, and you can see there is still the same thing. They all have that one thing in common, being soul sand with a skull on it. That is to show the goop being put into the machines. This was these two I only really did one go through with them. The Cerberus one was the first one I made. This one being the second. And this is a scrapped one I was working on for the Harpy, just like a bird-like thing. But I decided against it because although these ones are more vulture-like, um, I decided against it because I didn't think it would work as well as I wanted it to. Because I could never get the wing. I wanted to put wings on it, but it's also too big for what I wanted, for the space that I was working on, so I didn't end up using it. But yeah, I think, oh, that's me rebuilding the head, so I made sure. I originally built the head first, I think, and I wanted to make sure I had it so I could rebuild it there. But yeah, that's it, I think. Well, normally I'd ask questions, but there's no one here, so yeah, I guess that's it. This is gonna be stuck as a VOD forever now. Hooray!